Norm Bland, the language man.
Norm Bland, the language man. Onomatopoeia.
Norm Bland, the language man.
Metaphor.
Norm Bland, the language man.
Language rules. Periods and sentences.
Norm Bland, the language man. Norm Bland, the language man. Norm Bland, the language man.
Question mark?
The writing process.
The writing process. The writing process is a process by which we write. No, you don't just sit down and write. That would be wrong. Not right. That would be wrong. You have to write. And these are the steps in that process. First of all, you're going to pre-write. You're going to have to think about what you're actually going to write. So pre-writing, even though it says writing, isn't writing. It's before you write. So you're going to pre-write your ideas. Think about what you're going to write before you actually write. Then the next step would be drafting. No, that's not going into the Army. That's drafting. Actually writing. This isn't the final step. You might think it's the final step, but take a look at this. You're going to organize your thoughts.
Organize?
That means you're going to put those thoughts in an organization so that when you're finally finished writing, there's the end. You're done. But you're not done now, because then you have to revise. That means make it better. So you wrote down something and it's not good. This is your chance to make it better. So you're going to correct your mistakes and rewrite. Then you go back to proofreading, and then you publish. But here is the process. Draft, revise, proofread, draft, revise, proofread, draft, revise, proofread. And that's the writing process.
Character.
Character is an essential part of making writing come to life. It's almost like the characters, the people or things involved in the story come to life. You'd have one character. Whoa, maybe this one died because I you have one character, a lion.
Roar.
He walks into the story. Hi, I'm a lion. Then you have another character, a monkey. He comes onto the scene. Hi, I'm a monkey. But then they have a log conversation, a two conversation. Hi, I'm a lion. Hi, I'm a monkey. Suddenly they're talking and it's a dialogue and we're excited.
Excited.
Writing involves all kinds of tools as well.
Like a hammer?
There's some fancy tools like computers, but not everybody has a computer. Or typewriters, but not everybody has a typewriter.
I see.
Here's something you can do at home. What you'll need is an ordinary piece of paper. Could have lines, doesn't have to have lines. And you need a pencil. And what you can do is you put the pencil on the paper and actually write words. Now you don't have to write words, you can write other words besides just the word words. And pretty soon, you know what you're doing? You're writing. Writing on a piece of paper. And you can do that in your own home. You don't need all those fancy things. Has this ever happened to you?
What?
You're writing along, and all of a sudden, the pencil breaks.
Yeah.
You can't write anymore. That's it. It's over. You might as well quit your career writing. Quit writing altogether. But here's something you can try. Use what's called a pencil sharpener.
Wow.
Yes, this is incredible device. Allows you to sharpen the pencil. See?
Watch
I've
out,
sharpened the
it's
pencil.
sharp.
Ouch! A little too sharp.
I told you.
And continue writing. Look at this! Words are everywhere! Everywhere I look, I see a word. Lawnmower shop. Friendship is our business. Without words, we wouldn't know that friendship was their business. I would think this was a gas station. Thank goodness for words. Words can tell us what to do. Words can tell us what not to do. No smoking. Words can tell us where to go. Executive beepers. In fact, I'm even looking at things that aren't even words. That's not a word, but it's written there and I can read it. Words are amazing things. And here's more words. Look, here's a word down here. Oh, wait, you don't want to see that word. This is what we do to those words. There are some words that aren't good. Here's some words. Look at this. Carne fresca. Huh, I could use a fresca right now. And here's a whole bunch of words. Why, it says tamales, hollow, carne. I don't know what that means, but it's great. There's so many words, so many places, so little time. Writing is a very important part of our daily lives. Imagine, if you will, a world without writing. There would be no letters. There would be no stop signs. Sorry. There would be no report cards. There would be no signs telling us which restroom to go into.
Yuki, get out of here! Get it!
There would be no dictionaries, so we couldn't look up the words that we didn't know because there's no words to know in the first place. You might be asking yourself, where does all this writing go? I mean, I finished the writing process. Well, then what? Here's the interesting thing. Writing is what makes up books. And books are everywhere. Well look, there's a book. And there's a book over there. There's books everywhere. In fact, there's a whole bunch of books on a bookshelf. A shelf just for books, which have words, which you wrote earlier and revised. And here they end up as books. Here's a book. Oh, well, this just happens to be Normbland the Language Man. Also available on video cassette, which does involve words.
Normbland, the Language Man.
Normbland the Language Man. Normbland the Language Man. Normbland the Language Man.